Good afternoon. Flames have torn through a barn in Scarborough, prompting a major fire response.
So far, no injuries have been reported as crews work to bring the flames under control. CTV's Janice Golding has been following this story and joins us live with the latest. Janice.
Hi, Natalie. We're standing right now on Beer Road, which is near Plug Hat Road, just north of the Toronto Zoo, to contextualize exactly where we are. And if you look behind us here, you might see some white smoke drifting across the roadway. You'll also see a long line of emergency responders, a lot of vehicles coming in and out of here at this point because we are told that there is not a lot of water supply in the area. So what they've done is employed pumpers from Ajax, Whitby. They're going to local hydrants, and then they are dropping off water in pools here so that they can fight the blaze with that. Of course, that's causing a little bit of challenges logistically, and it's taking some time. So the road is completely shut down now to people who live in the area because they need access for those pumpers to go back and forth. I am told that this was a 2-alarm blaze that broke out in a workshop in a rural property here. It's not actually a farm, as we had first originally been led to believe, but a workshop. Somebody told it in the area, telling us it was a wood workshop. In fact, Toronto Fire says it is a second alarm blaze that at its height involved about 100 firefighters and 26 apparatus. At this point, they have knocked it down considerably, but it is still not down, and that's why Toronto Fire says they do not know at this point exactly how the blaze started. They haven't been able to get close enough to investigate. Here is more from Toronto Fire.
We arrived after 9. And there was a large workshop on a rural property. It was away from any residential homes, and it was fully involved. We've been shuttling water in with our tanker system, and we've been utilizing our neighboring municipalities, Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby, with tankers. Yeah, it always takes a little bit more effort when you have the tankers, but out here in the east rural end of the city, we do have that set up at our stations out here, and that's the process we've been going through to battle this.
Now, just behind us here, you'll see a Toronto paramedic bus brought here as a precautionary measure. But of course, again, we were told that no one has been injured in this blaze. In fact, the family that lives in that area is still on scene. We'll have more for you later. Thank you. That's it from us here in Scarborough. I'm Janice Golding. Now back to you, Natalie.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Bullets were flying in North York this morning. A business was struck by gunfire for the second time this week.
Fortunately, no injuries were reported. Now police are searching for who may have pulled the trigger. CTV's Allison Hurst has been following this investigation. She joins us live now with the latest. Allison.
Michelle, we spoke with somebody just inside the building on site here when we arrived, and while he didn't want to make any official comment, he did tell us that he got a call from his security officers overnight who are here patrolling it, saying that the building had been shot at. We have counted roughly a dozen bullet holes through the main entrance of this building, shattering the glass in the front windows and main door. This happened shortly before 1:30 in the early morning hours in North York at a GFL hauling yard at Weston Road and Fenmar Drive. No injuries were reported and no suspect description has been released. This is the second time this week this has happened. On Monday, gunfire damaged the building, and crews could be seen patching up the holes and cleaning up the next day. Again, that time too, no one was injured. And last month, 3 of the waste management company's trucks caught fire at a yard near Kipling Avenue and Rexdale Boulevard. No injuries reported that time either. The Ontario Fire Marshal is investigating. Now, Toronto Police is not commenting at this time, nor are they telling us whether or not they think any of these incidents might be connected or related. But we did speak with a couple of officers who were here earlier this morning conducting their investigation, and they did tell us that the gang unit is doing the investigation and that they were there informing business owners and everybody in the area to expect a heightened police presence. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. I'll send it back inside.
Thank you, Allison. Hamilton police have charged a man with first-degree murder in connection with a homicide back in 2023.
The suspect was already in police custody in relation to a separate case. CTV's Beth McDonnell has been following the investigation and joins us live with the details. Beth.
Natalie, Hamilton police say while it has been more than 2 years since Daniel Musafiri was shot and killed, they hope this arrest provides some measure of relief. The 29-year-old was at Boulevard Billiards establishment in Hamilton on December 29th 2023. After he left, police allege he had a brief verbal interaction with the man accused before Musafiri was shot shortly before 11 p.m., with the suspect taking off. This is the man charged with first-degree murder. His name is Eric Kalanios, 29 years old, of Hamilton. They say police say he was out on parole and had breached his parole at the time. Police say there is no indication he and Musafiri knew each other prior.
During the course of investigating another occurrence, detectives obtained new information that provided additional intelligence linking a suspect to Daniel's death. Investigators were then able to build upon the evidence gathered during the early stages of the case, which ultimately led to the identification of a suspect. As a result of this ongoing investigation, Eric Kalanios, a 29-year-old Hamilton man who is already in custody on an unrelated matter, has now been arrested and charged with first-degree murder in the death of Daniel Musafiri.
Every day, in a statement shared at the police press conference, Musafiri's mother says, "Every day I wake up with the pain of knowing I will never see my son again, never hear his voice, and never feel his hug. No mother should ever have to bury her child. My son deserved to live his life, but instead, I must live the rest of mine mourning him." Police say they were able to make this arrest after another occurrence led to new information and intelligence. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Natalie and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. Still to come, Prime Minister Mark Carney weighs in on Canada's potential involvement in the war in the Middle East. We'll have more on his comments a little later in the newscast. OPP say they have seized millions of dollars worth of suspected fentanyl linked to an interprovincial drug trafficking network. Back in May, investigators say they identified individuals trafficking fentanyl between the Greater Toronto Area and Calgary. Then in February, officers executed a search warrant in Brampton and seized 18 kilograms of suspected fentanyl. Police say that's equal to 180,000 potential lethal doses with an estimated value of more than $2.3 million. One suspect was taken into custody there, and 3 others were arrested on drug trafficking charges in Alberta.
2 people were arrested outside Queen's Park yesterday during a demonstration against the Ford government's recent cuts to OSAP. Police allege one person vandalized a monument with spray paint. They say as officers were trying to bring that person into custody, several other demonstrators interfered with the arrest, including someone who spat on an officer. 22-year-old Roshtan Shani is charged with mischief, while 21-year-old Mason Wallington is charged with assaulting a peace officer.
The Ford government is bringing back paper report cards to Ontario public schools. The press secretary for Ontario Education Minister Paul Calandra says the ministry is working to once again make report cards available in a paper format. The province says the move is being made for families to have simple access to their child's progress. Schools in the GTA are mostly sending student report cards electronically via a dedicated portal or password-protected email. There is no timeline for when paper report cards will be available.
Brampton has begun charging stores $100 for every shopping cart they find abandoned in the city. The measure was approved by Brampton City Council last month as a way to recover the costs and resources of collecting carts left in public spaces. The city says it will charge a collection fee after staff find carts left in places like trails, parks, creeks, and transit stops, and can clearly determine what store the cart belonged to. The city says the abandoned carts pose safety hazards to residents and wildlife. More news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. It looks a little bit cloudy out there. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Lindsay, what do we have in store for us today?
Yeah, Natalie, the clouds have rolled in, and soon too will the rainfall. And at this point, it is looking like rain, less so like freezing rain, because temperatures are a little bit warmer than they could have been. But there's still going to be the risk as we make our way into the night tonight. It's raining right now in and around the city of Hamilton. Still a whole lot of moisture stateside that's going to make its way across southern Ontario as the day goes on. Freezing rain warning, it looks like just issued for the city of Toronto. So how about that? We'll bring you up to speed on this morning, just updating in real time. But there you have it, right along the north shore of Lake Ontario. The likelihood of freezing rain looks to have gone up as we make our way into the night tonight. You wouldn't know it right now. It is +4 degrees outside. Winds are coming out of the east and they are pretty gusty at this time. Here's a look at what you can expect today and tonight. Again, periods of rain, but also that risk of freezing rain. We'll take you through the forecast right into the weekend coming up. For now, Natalie, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. To Ottawa now, where the Carney government's push to reduce the size of the public service has reached a new milestone. More than 25,000 public servants have now received notices that their jobs could be at risk. Those notices have been sent out over the last 2 months as the federal budget makes its way through Parliament. Figures shared by the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat and federal unions show notifications have been issued across 36 departments. Those unions have warned cuts will hurt everyone who depends on vital public services. The budget implementation bill is still before the Senate, but the financial plan calls for a reduction of 28,000 positions by 2029 in an effort to cut government spending. Well, for the first time in nearly 20 years, a Canadian Prime Minister has addressed the Australian Parliament.
Mark Carney outlined his vision for strategic collaboration with Australia. CTV's Abigail Beeman is traveling with the Prime Minister and has more from Canberra.
Prime Minister Mark Carney addressed Australian Parliament in Canberra Thursday, focused on the many similarities between our two nations.
Two proud democracies, the true north and the land down under. The world will always be driven by great powers, but it can also be shaped by middle powers that trust each other and act with speed and purpose.
Carney talked about deepening the alliance with Australia. That country has agreed to sign on to the Critical Mineral Alliance launched by Canada during the G7, and there were agreements on AI and defense. The Arctic Over-the-Horizon radar Canada bought from Australia is one of the first things Carney did after he was elected, and on this trip announced Canadian soldiers will begin training on it later this year. MPs in Australia's shared Westminster parliamentary system listened attentively to the Prime Minister and gave him a standing ovation. The speech had overlap with his Davos address, which played very well here in Australia, especially around the messaging of bringing middle powers together in the face of current geopolitical tensions and a change in the international order. After the speech, the two prime ministers held a news conference, asked about Canada's potential military involvement in Iran. Carney said you can't categorically rule out participation, and Canada will stand by its allies. The final stop on the Prime Minister's Indo-Pacific trade diversification tour is Japan. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Canberra.
The United States and Israel are continuing their bombing campaign in Iran as the Islamic Republic strikes back at American and Israeli bases throughout the Middle East. Explosions lit up the sky over Tehran overnight as the conflict is now in its 6th day. An Iranian government agency says more than 1,000 civilians have been killed since the war began.
And Iran has launched a new wave of attacks against Israel and American military bases in the Middle East. Iran's foreign minister says the U.S. will bitterly regret sinking an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean. Meanwhile, a high-ranking Iranian clerical official called for the blood of U.S. President Donald Trump during an appearance on state television.
Meanwhile, Israel's military has begun new strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Lebanon's health ministry and state-run news agency say at least 8 people were killed in strikes that happened overnight. CTV's Scott Hurst has been following the widening war and joins us live now with the latest. Scott, a lot has happened since it all began on Saturday. Thousands of Canadians, in the meantime, have requested government assistance to leave countries in the Middle East. What are the plans to get them out?
Michelle, as the war evolves, as it becomes much more volatile in the region and impacts more areas throughout the Middle East, countries around the world are facing increased pressure, including Canada, to do more for their citizens who are in the Middle East and are trying to get out. So we heard from the Foreign Affairs Minister yesterday after the government initially said that they weren't offering assisted departures. Since then, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand has said the government is looking at 3 specific avenues. This is what they're working on to try and get Canadians out, as they've had more than 2,000 requests from Canadians for assistance leaving the Middle East. So the government is looking at getting limited charter flights depending on airspace. It's also looking at block booking seats on commercial flights for Canadians and ground transportation where it is safe to do so. As mentioned, out of the more than 106,000 Canadians who've registered in the Middle East across 15 affected countries, more than 2,000 have since asked for assistance leaving, Michelle.
What are the next steps to coordinate the evacuations?
Of course, so much on the next steps depends on availability of airspace. It depends on local guidance and the ability for safe passes. Now, we had the Foreign Affairs Minister break down 5 specific countries they're looking at, which she says makes up about 85% of all requests for assistance from Canadians, starting with the United Arab Emirates, where there are the most requests for Canadians to leave, more than 1,100, in fact, out of nearly 30,000 who are registered there. Airspace is limited. Commercial flights are limited. The government is working to confirm charter flights for Canadians to fly out of the UAE. In Qatar, there are more than 230 Canadians who've asked for assistance leaving out of more than 9,000 registered. Airspace is closed in Qatar. No options to fly in or out. Qatari Airlines, according to Minister Anand, is arranging bus transportation for 200 Canadians with existing tickets to an airport in Saudi Arabia for a flight out. In Lebanon, there are more than 160 Canadians who've asked for help leaving. Here's more from the Foreign Affairs Minister, specifically on the situation to get Canadians out of Lebanon.
In Lebanon, approximately 164 Canadians have asked for assistance in departing, out of over 23,000 people who have registered with our ROCA system. As mentioned, 75 people were on a commercial flight this morning using seats that were set aside for Canadians to reserve themselves. 200 more such seats are available over the course of the next 3 days.
Now, specifically in Israel, flights out for Canadians still not an option. More than 90 have requested assistance departing out of 6,000 who've registered in that country. But the government of Israel is offering bus service to Egypt to help foreign citizens get out. Now, the situation in Iran is much more complex and much more difficult. There are 3,000 Canadians registered there. 74 have asked for assistance leaving. But the Canadian government has no diplomatic ties with Iran. They have no way to get Canadians out of that country. So what we heard from the Foreign Affairs Minister is that the Canadian government has at the very least been able to beef up consular assistance in neighboring countries, Michelle, in order to do what they can to help Canadians in Iran specifically and Canadians in some of these other countries impacted by this war in the Middle East.
CTV Scott Hurst live for us in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
In the U.S. Senate, a vote on restricting the president's authority to attack Iran failed last night, with lawmakers divided mostly along partisan lines.
You don't have to authorize military operations. They can go on as long as the president wants them to go on until you cut off funding.
Why is he plunging America headfirst into a war that Americans do not want and which he cannot even explain?
The measure failed 53 votes to 47, lowering the stakes ahead of a similar vote in the House of Representatives. Democrats and some Republicans have argued the president is ignoring requirements to inform and get approval from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Says the administration has complied with the law.
Drivers across Canada are feeling the effects of the war in the Middle East in their wallets as gas prices jump across our country. The widening conflict has halted tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. That's the narrow passage in the Persian Gulf through which about a fifth of the world's oil passes. Maritime insurers have also hiked rates or canceled coverage for vessels in the area. As a result, gas prices have gone up again in 8 provinces, with the largest increase seen here in Ontario at 3.4%. Quebec and BC saw the second largest jumps, both at just under 1%. The Northwest Territories saw prices remain relatively stagnant, while Newfoundland and Labrador was the only province that saw a price drop, down 5.9% today.
Well, hundreds of residents in eastern Ontario are expressing their opposition to a proposed high-speed rail line.
The multi-billion-dollar project would connect Toronto and Quebec City, but critics say it could negatively impact rural communities. CTV's Austin Lee reports.
A packed house at the Perth Lions Club Wednesday afternoon as homeowners and farmers voice their opinions on a proposed high-speed rail line through Ontario and Quebec.
I'm not looking for jobs, but my kids and my grandchildren are going to be looking for jobs. I think if we want a prosperous economy, we need a transportation system for the 21st century, and this is going to be it.
Our concern is that rural communities will be bearing the brunt of the risk with a project like this, and will be reaping very few of the rewards.
The line would connect Toronto and Quebec City, with multiple stops including in Ottawa and Montreal. One possible route would cut through here, just north of Perth.
If you slice farms in half, you ruin the livelihoods of farmers, you change the nature of the entire industry, you potentially end the viability of communities.
Glenn McKenzie owns a farm near Balderson, right in the proposed path of the rail line. He's one of many residents raising concerns about the possibility of land expropriation.
If it were to come through our farm, it would end our ability to use whatever part of the land is on the other side of that line. And so it would probably end our farming career.
Alto, the Crown Corporation behind the plan, says where necessary, it will provide fair compensation for expropriated land.
We will sit down, we will see how we can mitigate. If we can't, we will negotiate in good faith and try to reach an agreement.
Area Conservative MPs against the proposal gathering signatures for a petition aimed at stopping the $60 to $90 billion project in its tracks.
Our national federal deficit right now is just under $80 billion. It's considered unsustainably large. Adding $90 billion onto that is just something we cannot financially sustain as a country.
Alto says the project will create more than 50,000 jobs and add more than $24 billion to Canada's annual GDP. Austin Lee, CTV News.
The mayor of Windsor is asking for the province to grant an exemption on tolls for trucks on a road that takes drivers to and from the Ambassador Bridge, at least until the Gordie Howe Bridge is open.
Huron-Church Road is the road leading to the Ambassador Bridge. That is a municipal road that you and I pay for through our municipal taxes. And it gets beat up on a daily basis with a barrage of trucks that use Huron-Church Road. On your behalf, I'm tired of all of this spending of money. I want to make sure that we have a revenue stream that helps make the city whole and offset the expenses that we're incurring.
Last month, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to block the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge unless America was compensated. The bridge is publicly owned by Canada and the state of Michigan, with Canada funding the entire $6.4 billion project and using toll revenues to recoup expenses.
As spring approaches, maple syrup season is officially underway across Ontario.
So right now, we just turned on our vacuums. You're starting to see sap come in from the lines. We're just purging kind of the air out, and then later today we'll go looking for leaks. But yeah, it's just the start of the flow for the day.
How sweet it is. Many commercial operators have already fully tapped their trees, taking advantage of the recent sunshine. Experts say the ideal conditions are daytime highs above freezing and cold nights to keep the sap flowing.
Well, we're going to be on a little bit of a temperature roller coaster over the next 2 weeks here in southern Ontario. And of course, one of the concerns today, rain. And that is concerning in what's still technically for many the winter time. We've got a lot of snowpack out there, so a lot of melting expected to happen. And rivers and streams will no doubt be running higher and faster as we make our way into the weekend. Now, this is what our models are suggesting as far as ice accretion for tonight, mainly concerned about the Kingston area. However, as you may have seen off the top of the show, we are now under a freezing rain warning here in the city of Toronto. That is issued by Environment Canada. So we'll give you an idea of how much ice is possible within that warning area after the break here on CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
The World Cup is coming to Canada.
Dreams are fulfilled. Canada, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. That's what they came for!
Well, art is everywhere in this city, including underneath a portion of Lake Ontario. CTV's Jessica Smith joins us live now with more on a new installation called Perspectives. Jess, we want to know more on this. Tell us.
We are underneath Lake Ontario right now, Miss Natalie, as we speak, and I'm joined by Anson, the artist, and Deb from the airport. And I want to ask you about Perspectives. It's an art project that's been going on for just over a year now, but we are in a pretty unique place to see public art. Explain to me how this project came about, because we've seen hundreds of people coming through and looking at this beautiful work.
Yeah, Billy Bishop pedestrian tunnel has been around since 2015, but it's only in the last year that we really made an investment in making the space less utility and more about art. So this is our third installation of the Perspectives program here at Billy Bishop Airport. It is 5 artists, 4 pieces of work each, and what we're trying to do is just bring a bit of interest and creativity to what is otherwise a very utilitarian space, connecting the mainland to the island airport. And we think we've done a really great job of capturing the stories, the people, the places of Toronto to really give people a welcome when they get here.
And speaking of the people and the places, Anson, you're one of the artists that's included in this, and so fun. And Thai Princess is one that people have been walking through being like, oh my gosh, I've eaten there. I love that place. For you, what has it been like having your work on display here, but also being able to share that piece of your history with people coming through the airport?
It's such a unique experience. Something I wanted to think about when I applied for this application is the quote, "To be loved is to be seen." I grew up in that restaurant, and instead of taking it over, I now paint restaurants across the country. So being able to share the beginning parts of that practice here with hundreds and thousands of people in this tunnel of an airport underground is so crazy. It's amazing.
Crazy in a cool way.
Yeah.
And just in the few minutes we've been standing down here, people are stopping, they're taking a look. How does it make you feel to see people taking in your work and the work of all the artists that are included in this project in this way, because they're on their way to whatever destination they're going to, but they're stopping and looking at your work?
It's an incredibly validating feeling. I also have never had my artwork this large before, so that's also incredible. It's literally the size of a wall. It's really big. Yeah, it's very validating to see people stop and stare and be a part of all this.
It's meant to be viewed on the move. It will be in place here for about 6 months. So you have time to come through, maybe catch a flight, take in some art, and enjoy the airport, the tunnel. We're going to send things back inside to the studio.
Thank you, Jess. Thanks, everyone. Looks fabulous. As far as the weather forecast, not as appealing, I think, when we've got a freezing rain warning. It was so nice yesterday, but now we have to kind of cope with some unsettled stuff.
Well, we're all looking forward to those plus side temperatures in the next few days, double digits in case, but I guess the freezing rain has to come first.
Yeah, freezing rain will come first, and then when we have our warmest days going forward, at least the first round of them, we're going to have some unsettled weather to go along with it too, and some windy weather, especially on Saturday, but the direction of those winds means that, yes, we are going to be experiencing highs in the teens. But yes, let's bring it back to today and the risk of freezing rain. Lots to talk about. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. So as I was saying a little earlier, there's already concern with simply rainfall, not just freezing rain. And that's because there's still a lot of snowpack out there, depending on where you're joining us from in southern Ontario. Those banks are still pretty high, even though they've been starting to melt. If you can, make sure your storm drain is clear on your street or in your neighborhood, because that's going to help with all the melting that happens over the next few days here. All right, freezing rain warning from Kingston extending right around the Golden Horseshoe, including the city of Hamilton and including us here in the city of Toronto. It is a special weather statement into Niagara region. EC warning of the possibility of 2 millimeters of ice accretion with the possible freezing rain moving in tonight. So what we're looking for on the radar are these pockets of pink that you see here happening right now at a higher elevation area near Milton. We'll widen things out so you can see in most cases right now it is simply rain, showers impacting southwest Ontario and over toward Niagara, creeping into the west end of the GTA as well. Bigger picture look is going to show you that, yeah, there's a whole lot of moisture stateside. So that still is to move in overnight tonight. And it's not the only round of rain that we're going to get over the coming days into the weekend. quite unsettled overnight and into your Saturday as well. We'll get a little lull in the precipitation for tomorrow. Here's a look at tonight. So this is around 5 p.m. Again, areas in pink. That's the possibility of some freezing rain, freezing precip. Again, around Kingston, where we do suspect that there will be a little bit of ice accretion. This all moves out by about midnight, and we're not necessarily looking at heavy amounts of rain with tonight's round, but into tomorrow night, look at this. Possibility of some thunderstorms for your Friday evening, unsettled overnight and into the day on Saturday. So if we do get some of those embedded thunderstorms, that's going to up our rainfall amounts. And again, this is concerning when it comes to not just the rainfall amounts, but also all the melting snow out there. So rivers and streams going to be running high and fast into this weekend. I mentioned the winds into Saturday. We're going to be tapping into a bit more of a southerly and southwesterly wind. So that brings our temperature up for sure. It's 4 degrees right now. Temperature is going to fall through the afternoon and then will hold at about +1 through the overnight. There's tomorrow's expected high, +5 degrees for most areas. But let's talk about those teen temperatures. They come more so into the weekend. There's Saturday at 13 degrees. And hey, this is pretty nice into Monday. Mainly sunny skies and a high of 13. That's the weather for now. I'll send it back over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Premier Doug Ford and Federal Industry Minister Mélanie Joly they're speaking right now at the opening of Canada's first EV manufacturing plant in Windsor. Let's listen to what they have to say.
And we will use our defense investments, which will be up to $500 billion by 2035, to make sure we have an economic stimulus for our advanced manufacturing sectors. And all that will be supported by our Buy Canada strategy. So today is more than opening a plant. It's actually Canada asserting control over its own economy. It's about creating jobs right here at home. And we know that Nexstar, LG, is opening, and we've heard it, one of the most advanced battery manufacturing plants in North America. It's a $5 billion investment that represents confidence. Confidence in our workers, confidence in our sector, and also confidence in Canada's role in our global economy. So now we're at 1,300 people hired. Congratulations. We want to ramp up production, and we want to get to 2,500 people. And I know that there's been lots happening in Ontario this week. PDAC was happening as well. It went extremely well. Lots of investments in critical minerals. And so for too long, we know that Canada has been extracting resources without necessarily always being able to capture the value of transformation. Well, we're changing that. Because let's be clear, the countries that will build batteries for cars and energy storage will define the 21st century economy. And so LG is choosing Canada for its workers, for a stable country, for the fact that we are trustworthy, and for advanced clean energy. And so we want to continue to, we believe in this partnership. We believe in the partnership with Korea. Thank you for making the trip, Minister Kim. I know we'll have an important conversation afterwards, but it is really, really great that we can work together, and we want Canada to be a trusted partner with Korea. And so we can do a lot of things together. LG, it was great to see you in Ottawa, in Korea, and also here, of course. And thank you to Ontario. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Vic. I know that you've worked for years on this. I'm here on the stage and ripping just basically all the benefits of the work and of the work of my colleague beforehand, Mr. Champagne. But I just wanted to say that we're very, very proud, and we wanted to be here, because ultimately the future is being built here in Windsor by Canadians for Canadians, and this is a prime example of building Canada strong. Thank you so much. Merci. And it is my pleasure to introduce my counterpart, the Korean Minister of Trade, of Industry and Resources, Minister Kim.
All right, you're watching a live news conference in Windsor. We thought maybe we might hear from Premier Doug Ford, but as this representative speaks, we'll tell you that essentially you've got the federal and the provincial governments marking a big moment today. Canada's first large-scale battery manufacturing facility, $5 billion, and lots of jobs. 1,300 hired so far, 2,500 in total hoped for the future. We'll continue to follow this developing story. But for now, let's move to some sports. The Maple Leafs have traded Nick Roy to the Colorado Avalanche for draft picks, their first major move ahead of tomorrow's trade deadline. Meanwhile, the team is going to have another chance to snap their losing streak when they face off with the New York Rangers tonight.
Matthews to keep it alive. He doesn't. Marks from the stop, and the New Jersey Devils have won it in a shootout.
The Leafs losing there to the Devils in a shootout last night, extending their winless streak to 5 games. The team has not won a game since the Olympic break. Puck drop for tonight's game against the Rangers is set for just after 7 p.m. in New York.
On the court, the Raptors will be looking to get back in the win column when they take on the Minnesota Timberwolves this evening.
Here's RJ with the three. Buries it.
The team is coming off a 111-95 loss to the New York Knicks on Tuesday. The Raptors have lost 3 of their last 4 games and currently sit in 5th place in the NBA's Eastern Conference. Tip-off for tonight's game against the Timberwolves is set for just after 8 p.m. in Minnesota.
The Toronto Tempo are marking the lead up to International Women's Day with the launch of a new community platform. Tempo Impact will be dedicated to advancing the health and well-being of women and girls across Canada. The organization says the platform is focused on addressing the gender health disparity. Its inaugural partners were announced today. They include Canada Basketball, Women's College Hospital Foundation, and Canadian Women in Sport.
Still to come this hour, home sales were on the decline in the GTA last month. We'll have more on why when we come back.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Home sales in the GTA fell last month, along with new listings and average selling prices. The Toronto Regional Real Estate Board says nearly 3,900 homes changed hands in February. That's down 6.3% from the same month last year. The average selling price was also down just over 7% from last February to just over $1 million. There were roughly 10,700 new listings in February, down nearly 18% compared to last year. Treb says potential buyers are waiting for the market to bottom out before making their move.
Where we might be seeing a bit of a change, though, is that new listings dropped off by a much greater rate than sales over the past year when you look at February. And so if that continues, we could start to see less competition or more competition, between buyers and a bit of a solid footing for price. And I think that's one of the pieces of the puzzle that a lot of buyers that are on the sidelines are still waiting for. They're waiting to see, prices sort of flatline, and then they'll be more confident moving into the market and thinking they'll see some sort of appreciation in the future. Yeah.
Taking into account Toronto and the rest of the GTA, combined home sales are just shy of 7,000 units so far in 2026. Well, snowy winters mean lots of salt on the roads, and it can have a damaging effect on the asphalt.
Now, a Quebec municipality is testing a road salt alternative, an additive from starfish. CTV's Laurence Brisson-Debroy reports.
Dorval is trying something different to deal with Quebec winters. An additive made from starfish skeletons that could cut corrosion and reduce environmental damage. Mayor Marc Doré says the city has tested granite rocks.
It's very difficult to clean up at the end of the year.
And wood chips.
It's not really a solution that works very well.
But the new mix is doing better. A South Korean company called Stars Tech removes invasive starfish species that damage coral reefs, then grinds them up into a powder that absorbs excess chloride and helps limit corrosion. In a statement to CTV News, Stars Tech says its product works better in extreme cold temperatures than road salt, while being less harmful in the environment and being pet-friendly. The product is already used at the Edmonton International Airport and is being tested in Montreal's suburbs of Kirkland and Longueuil. Doré says the next step could be importing large volumes of just the starfish additive and mixing it in-house.
So that next winter, we would have a solution where we can mix it with the salt that we already get here in Canada. Less environmental impact in transport.
At McGill University, Catalina Klaus studies how de-icers affect freshwater ecosystems. She says road salt builds up in soil and waterways, and the impact can spread quickly.
It can provoke, for instance, species to die. It can impact, therefore, the interaction of species and then provoke a change throughout an entire food web.
She's also studying alternatives like beet juice and found they can carry their own risks, including the eradication of zooplankton. She says testing new products is important, but so is understanding their long-term impact. Klaus says what happens after these products wash away is just as important.
How does beet juice leach into a water body versus road salt? There's a lot of context that needs to be added.
The race is on to find what works without causing new problems. Laurence Brisson-Dubreuil, CTV News.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, Apple has announced a new laptop at its cheapest price ever. We'll have more on the MacBook Neo when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Apple has announced a new laptop at its cheapest price ever. The MacBook Neo is the first to run on the A18 Pro chip, which is found in iPhone 16 Pro models. Its starting price is $799. It is roughly the same size as the MacBook Air and comes in a variety of colors. Apple says this move is in response to the widespread adoption of Chromebooks and Windows 7 laptops in schools. The company also announced upgrades to the rest of its MacBook line.
Pop icon Britney Spears was arrested last night in Southern California on what reports suggest was an impaired driving charge. The Ventura County Sheriff's Office says Spears was taken into custody around 9:30 p.m. and released early this morning. Variety is reporting the 44-year-old was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. A representative for Spears told the outlet, Britney is going to take the right steps and comply with the law, later adding, hopefully she can get the help and support she needs during this difficult time. The singer was released from her 13-year conservatorship in 2021.
Coming up, taking a journey through Canada's musical past. A Canadian collector has turned his private archive into a public museum.
A Calgary collector has turned his private archive of vinyl records and record players into a public museum.
CTV's Kevin Green got a first-hand look at the artifacts that showcase a unique part of Canada's music history.
Ken Murphy started collecting records as a child after his father brought home a Beatles album.
Some say it's a life misspent. I prefer to think it's a life full of passion.
It sparked a lifelong obsession with collecting and archiving artifacts and recorded music, which Murphy has now turned into a public gallery.
About 15 years ago, I realized that I had reached a critical mass in my collection, and there were patterns in my collection that needed to be explored.
The Vinyl-Centric Gallery's first exhibit, called Phonosphere, covers the period from 1948, when vinyl LPs debuted, to 1978. The exhibit showcases historic Canadian-made record players and offers a glimpse into the culture of the time.
Most record players were purchased during this era were purchased in appliance and furniture stores, not stereo stores or audio stores. And Mum was in charge of that process because we were buying furniture and it had to fit into her decor.
The museum highlights the birth and growth of Canada's recorded music scene, which until the early 1960s was almost non-existent. The Vinyl-Centric Gallery and Archive is also digitizing Murphy's over 100,000 record collection of vinyl LPs.
I figure I'll be scanning for about 5 years, 5 days a week. I usually get in about 8 o'clock in the morning, I scan till 3 or 4.
A visit to the museum features a curated background soundtrack of Motown, funk, disco, and rap. Murphy says he plans to add listening booths in a future phase. Kevin Green, CTV News, Calgary.
I would love my kids to see a record player and try it.
You know what? I've never even tried one of them, believe it or not. Yeah.
I think my parents have one still. I could dust it off, maybe.
They're kind of back back in fashion again, so you might be able to find one at the store even.
A nice little trend. Weather-wise, it's actually kind of nice right now, but when do you think we'll see this freezing rain?
So we're starting to see some rain at the very least, or some light shower activity making its way into the west end of the GTA. So we'll take one more look at the satellite and radar in just a moment. But first, let's remind you of the fact that Environment Canada does have us under this freezing rain warning. You can see just how widespread it is across the GTA, in through eastern sections of the province, essentially anyone on that northern edge shoreline of Lake Ontario. The showers are very intermittent and spotty right now. You can see there's a whole lot of moisture, though, just moving across the international border around the Windsor area. So a bit of a soaking first for our friends in southwestern Ontario. This is more of an evening event for us here locally. So there's your evening at a glance. Overnight, the temperature remains awfully similar at +1, but we will see the heavier rain taper off to simply drizzle for the most part. And then your Friday is mostly cloudy, +5. Saturday, we're up around 13 degrees. It's not all great, though. It's going to be a windy day. We're looking at showers. Sunday looks pretty nice. Forecast high 9 with mainly sunny skies. And then the early couple of days of next week, Michelle and Natalie, look pretty good. But I will say there's some colder air in the days beyond this 7th day, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I like the look of that Sunday sunshine for now. That is CTV's News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and on ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
I'm Natalie Johnson. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6 o'clock.